What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this I want to talk about what's going on with NIO stock, what's going on with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. What's going on with the economic calendar as we had some very important data come out involving CPI, and what's happening with the market moving forward. But before I break into all this information, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks. The offer ends very soon. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. NIO is down 6.25% for the day, at least thus far. We also saw SPY take a bit of a hit before we started to rebound at the very end of the day. And we saw the market basically follow this trend, a big drop as the day continued before an end of the day bounce. It was a nice bounce at the very last, like 20, 30 minutes. But with that being said, there are some buyers trying to defend the market, and I do anticipate they may continue tomorrow. So we'll be watching to see how this affects NIO. I'll be talking about this over the next couple of minutes. But let's first talk about CPI. CPI year over year was at 3.1%. This was on the hotter end of the forecast, not the best of data. Month over month, it was at 0.3% above expectations. Core CPI year over year was 3.9% above the expectation of 3.7%. And then finally, we had core CPI month over month at 0.4% above the 0.3% expectations. So, with that being said, everything right over here is extremely important. CPI was hotter than expected on almost every metric, especially because core went up. And that basically suggests to us that core CPI is increasing slightly, but CPI for all items is actually still coming down a bit. So, kind of mixed, but overall, I would say that it's still more concerning because of how high core was. It's still getting closer back up to 4%. And this is not what the Fed wants. That's actually kind of trumping any of the good news. So for that reason, there's a 91.5% chance now that the Fed is going to keep rates the same, and only an 8.5% chance that the Fed is going to begin cutting. So that's very important. I just wanted to call that out because the Fed is in a very critical state, and we're going to have to watch this carefully because now we're seeing things getting priced in differently. We had Airbnb and Upstart announced their earnings. Airbnb had pretty good earnings. They beat on EPS and revenue. The EPS was a 55-cent loss versus what the 62 cent, profit estimate. And then on top of this, we had a $2.22 billion revenue versus the $2.17 billion expectation. On top of this, revenue was up 17% from $1.9 billion in the same quarter of the previous year. And they keep on saying that the guest demand is still quite good. But in a shareholder letter, Airbnb says the company is in an inflection point after spending the last 3 years upgrading and adding features to its main service is basically going to be helpful for it, and they're planning to expand over time. So most of the earnings were quite good, pretty good news for them. But Upstart had some negative reports. Overall, EPS was very close. The revenue actually saw a slight decrease of 4%. Not the best from that end, but then what's really hurtful for them is the fact that their guidance was not the strongest. Looking at it ahead for the first quarter of 2024, they anticipated that revenue will be approximately 125 million, with contribution of margin reaching about 61%. Basically, their current expectations are subject to lots of risks, but they didn't really meet a lot of the expectations in terms of their full year guidance. So that's not the best of news for them. So that's why we saw this thing sink. As far as NIO goes, however, NIO is beginning the Alps. NIO Alps is going to be beginning the trial production for its first EV model in 2024 for July. It's anticipated that among the pioneering EV models featuring the NT3 platform, this is going to be very useful for them. And insiders are basically stating that delivery window for the DOM is very narrow, and it sets a very aggressive delivery target. So with them testing the new product and its capabilities, that's good news for them. Once Alps is once it's launched, that's going to be very good for them. DOM basically represents the first mass-produced EV model to incorporate NIO's NT3, platform, which is actually going to be more useful for their competitiveness and to enhance their technology. So this is good news for them thus far. The volume that came out was about 52 million, and the short volume actually came down. It's actually kind of flat right now at 43%. BOA Securities is currently kind of neutral. The price price ratio is kind of flat right now. And then on top of this, I just want to mention that it's not really a whole lot changing. So the question is, how is this basically looking? As far as NIO goes, I just want to mention that this thing came down with the market because of CPI, but we're going to be looking for a little bounce tomorrow because I think the whole market might attempt to rebound. I think that SPY has some buyers trying to step in, and we might see this thing attempt to get back up to this 30 minutes 200 EMA. We could be forming kind of like an inverse head and shoulders like structure. I don't know if it's going to go all the way up here, but it could be trying to curl up here, reject a little bit, then try pushing up higher. I also think that it's going to attempt to push up to at least 496. If we could break that or close above that, there's potential for 500. If we fail to do so, we might fail. So look for a test of 496 and see what we do. If we fail to break it, we're going to come back down. If we do break it, we could try to hold up and make our way up to 500. So look for a little rebound. I think 496 is going to be tested, then we'll see what happens after that. As far as Tesla goes, Tesla's trying to also curl right here. We could see Tesla rebound a little bit during the pre-market and start pushing back up again. I think we would retest 186 again and kind of chop around. There's a good chance we might see a little retest. For Apple, this came down very hard to 183.5, then it got a rebound to 185. I think it may test 186 tomorrow and kind of rebound as well in a very similar fashion. So look for that and then some sideways price action. I think the QQQ is going to try to make its way up towards 430 again and then just trade sideways around that. It's a very good chance 430 to 431 is coming, but then sideways price action. I think the whole market's going to follow the same trend. Nvda came down, but now it's forming kind of like an inverse head and shoulders like structure. It could attempt to help the QQQ push up. I think it might test 738 again tomorrow, this top right here, 735 to 738. We might see it attempts to rebound a little bit and then trade sideways. Not saying it's going to explode, it might just rebound slightly, so I'll be watching for that. So for NIO, from the way I'm essentially seeing it, I think that NIO is going to be testing 5.8. I think it's going to rebound to 5.8. If we break that, 5.88, it will likely be tested. I think it dropped too hard too fast, and it's due for a little bounce from here. So I think it might make its way up temporarily, then shift and trade sideways in the 5.8 range. We might get some sideways price action up there afterwards. That's what I'm predicting, guys. Please have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. I just want to note that please remember that NIO got dragged down today. It was not necessarily NIO's fault that it got this rug pull. The whole market came down in unison because CPI was a little bit hotter than expected. That is not what anyone wants to hear. That's not what we want to see. So the best thing to do is just try to be as patient as possible and not really let this get the best of us. So that being said, I just want to mention that tomorrow is going to be a new day. Kind of brush this off. Don't worry too much about it. We have some more earnings coming out, and there's not really a whole lot in the economic calendar. I kind of skipped over this part. Tomorrow is just a bunch of Fed speakers, nothing too crazy. So we'll see what happens. But because the data is very minor, there could be a chance that the market tries to rebound a bit. I think NIO could follow the trend, and then we'll see what happens after that. So, anyways, thank you for listening. Have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you, and peace out.